of In the Bleachers, the sports show for the sports fan.
Yep.
Our weekly show every Monday.
Just as I suspected, we muted ourselves for a moment because, as always, we're on autopilot, so we have to take it up onto ourselves to try and make sure that things are good to go.
Huh? Well, you always do a good job making things tip-top.
I try to. Thank you.
Well, we got a lot of stuff going on in the world of sports. We're in the month of May. And what does that mean, May? We're continuing with the NBA and NHL playoffs. We're in another month of Major League Baseball.
Yep, just the second month of Major League Baseball. And also, since it's May, that means horse racing is really taking center stage this time. It started off with the first leg of the Triple Crown just this past Saturday, which was the Derby, the Kentucky Derby, that is.
From the Twin Spires of Churchill Downs. This was the 143rd running of the race. This is one of the biggest marvels and spectacles, as they say, the best 2 minutes in sports. And it was so true. And we were all dreaming because Always Dreaming, the horse, won by 2 3/4 lengths. Over 2 long shots, by the way.
Yep.
Looking at Lee and the other horse that won, was in third, Battle of Midway. Looking at Lee was a 33-1 odds, and Battle of Midway was at over 40-1 odds. That means whoever got the trifecta and really put some money down,
really made a lot of money.
Oh, you know for sure. Always Dreaming came in as the favorite at 9-2 odds, and for the fifth straight year, the favorite has won the race. It's 1.25 miles on the Twin Spires of Churchill Downs on a very sloppy day that looked like peanut butter, basically.
Yeah.
Just to say it nicely. And always, the way the race began, there were a lot of horses that were like sandwiched almost together, including Classic Empire, who came in at the beginning of the week as the early favorite at 4-1 odds. But it went up to 7-1 on the day of the race. And unfortunately, there was one horse who came out of the gate from Dubai who actually stopped in the middle of the race and couldn't continue.
Yeah.
And that, unfortunately, does happen in some races where horses don't finish. But this is the biggest field. You have over 20 horses compete. Todd Fletcher, for the first time in years, won his second Derby race. And the same thing for John Velasquez. And the ownership, this is crazy. Brooklyn Boys Stables.
If you can believe that.
And you know who's also part of the ownership? The Violas. And if that name is familiar, Frank
Viola.
Owner of the NHL Florida Panthers. So right there, this is really a huge thing for New York, for Kentucky, and for this horse especially, who's the grandsire, I believe, of Bodemeister from years ago. And it was just a great race. He really sped, though, at the turn, taking away the race from another horse, State of Honor, and at the very end was able to, at the turn, just keep on going at the finish line, 2 3/4 lengths, winning the race, in under a minute 59, I believe. And now, it's the fifth straight year that the favorites won. It's the longest such stretch since 1892 to 1896.
And as we speak right now, a guy who might know a little thing or two about horse races. He's also an old friend of ours here at the show, Fred Kasha, who used to be one of my first broadcast partners on the show. He's checking us out from the other side of the glass. He's actually going to be doing his show next door in a few moments. So shout out to Fred Kasha for always doing a good job, not just with Fred's interesting topics, but also Fred's football picks, and now you've got a new project that you've got going on, which is what you're doing next door right now. Who Do You Like TV? Which is another entertainment show. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's a music show, isn't it?
Well, it's entertainment, yeah, all kinds of entertainment.
All kinds of entertainment. So basically, it's like a variety show of sorts, correct?
Yes, something like that, yeah.
It's great to have you back here again.
Thank you, Jamie.
It's good to see you again, as always.
Congratulations to the Yankees last night.
Yeah, big win for the Yankees. It just amazes me how certain teams just refuse to lose. And this team...
Never say die.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a cliche having to use those 3 words, never say die, but that's basically the attitude that the Yankees have taken upon themselves. Granted, it's only the 8th of May, and there's so much of the season left to go. But at this rate, the Yankees have been getting clutch hitting. They've been getting great, well, not necessarily great pitching, but the pitching has been steady enough that they've been able to float by for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. But right now, they seem to be getting one clutch hit or one clutch defensive play after another.
Definitely. Sorry, I don't mean to take it back.
Now, what happened
with the horse race? Just so you know, the next race in the Triple Crown coming up, the Preakness from Maryland, that's on the 20th, and then the Belmont Stakes from New York. 3 different terrains. But in terms of others, you want to go into some other sports stories, or?
If you would like to, yeah.
How about boxing? The last 2 big matches that we've seen. First, let's start in the heavyweight division. Vladimir Klitschko lost in the 11th round to Anthony Joshua by TKO.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is the fact that he's lost 3 straight matches. Really not good. Now, Anthony Jordan is going to possibly go up against Tyson Fury, the other guy who defeated recently Vladimir Klitschko.
Mm-hmm.
This was a guy who had a 9-year reign, winning 18 matches.
So true.
Winning so many different heavyweight championships. Now, Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, both British boxers. This is going to be a huge match at the O Arena for sure. That's going to be coming up. And then this past Cinco de Mayo weekend, 2 Mexican fighters, Canelo Alvarez and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., son of the great Julio Cesar Chavez Sr.,
Yep.
who was a great technician in the ring, for sure. Well, Alvarez made quick work and won by a decisive 120 to 108 score. It was a landslide.
Yeah.
Alvarez basically was rocking Cesar Chavez's bell from beginning to end. And now there is going to be the fight of the century taking place in September. I'm talking about none other than Canelo Alvarez versus Triple G Gennady Golovkin. It's about time these two are going to duke it up, get in the ring, and fight each other. Both guys undefeated. Somebody's going to lose their first match. This could be the biggest fight since Tyson Holyfield.
Which is really saying a lot, considering that the sport is still...
Actually, Alvarez did lose a fight, sorry.
Still falling on hard times, even in spite of some of the matches that have been going on.
Triple G, Gennady Golovkin, in his last match back in March, won for the first time actually by decision. This is a guy who's had 18 straight, he's had a huge knockout streak that ended back in March against Daniel Jacobs. But still, he's undefeated. These are both middleweight guys that are going to be knocking each other out. I'm thinking Las Vegas.
Yeah.
This is going to be huge. I cannot wait for this match to take place. The boxing world has wanted this, especially from the blunder, and I mean the blunder of Mayweather-Pacquiao. That was $100 waste of time for me and my father and every other person that had the unfortunate displeasure of shelling out that cash.
Yep.
Now, let's go into some WWE news. Recently, they had their latest pay-per-view, Payback, aptly titled. In the pre-show, Enzo Amore and Big Cass defeated Gallows and Anderson via the pinfall roll-up from Big Cass on Gallows. That's sort of, previewing one of them is going to end up being as Raw Tag Team Champion sometime down the line. I'm hoping Enzo and Cass. 2 guys from the New Jersey, New York area.
Yep.
Enzo is from Hackensack. Big Cass is from Brooklyn, New York. Born on the same day, but a year before me.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then the United States Championship, the biggest irony of all, 2 Canadians fighting to win the United States Championship.
Yeah, Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho, a couple of guys who were once tag team champions, now having one of the most bloody feuds between any 2 wrestlers that have gone on in a while.
Well, what happened was on Monday Night Raw several months back, Chris Jericho got his face put into a television screen by Kevin Owens because Kevin just basically couldn't stand him. So Chris Jericho has been trying to get back at Kevin, and he did it in the biggest possible way by making Kevin Owens submit to the walls of Jericho. And if you're a wrestler and you've ever been put through that move, that basically hurts your lower spine right there to the point where you basically have to tap out. And that's what Kevin Owens did. Lost his U.S. title to Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho is now on SmackDown because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Cruiserweight Championship, which I love the Cruiserweight division.
Yeah.
You know, for years we've seen great Cruiserweight fighting, especially in the Lucha Libre division in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got Austin Aries and Neville, two really good competitors.
Yep.
Austin Aries did win against Neville. However, it was via disqualification. As you know, a title cannot change hands because of disqualification. Then the Tag Team Championship match took place. The Hardy Boys defeated Sheamus and Cesaro via pinfall. Jeff Hardy doing his patented Swanton Bomb.
Yeah.
Which, isn't that awesome that they're back?
Oh, of course. I mean, that was a team that really made the tag team division really, really watchable and really, really important to watch. It was them, it was Edge and Christian, it was the Dudley Boys that made the tag team division so juicy and so critical for that company for so long.
And now they're back, and I'm hearing possible rumors that they're going to bring their broken gimmick that they had at TNA to WWE. They just need to sign the contracts to release the rights from TNA to use that gimmick. Which
really interesting.
And on top of that, guess who became a heel that night? Sheamus and Cesaro. You know, which is not really a surprise for Sheamus.
Sheamus has long been a really effective heel, and so is Cesaro. Although Cesaro really hasn't had that much of an identity, which is a shame considering that he's a really talented wrestler with a lot of good skill. They just needed to give him something concrete that they could work with.
The same thing for Sheamus. For the last few years, they both have had sort of an identity crisis where their characters or their career was going. That's why they eventually put them in a best-of-7 contest against each other, and then Mick Foley had the idea of making them a tag team. And honestly, it's worked out and paid off for everybody, including those two. And now that they're heels, I think it's going to be fun. And then Alexa Bliss, who just got switched over from SmackDown to Raw, defeated Bayley in her hometown of San Jose. The worst feeling to lose in front of your hometown fans.
Yeah.
Alexa Bliss wins the Raw Women's Championship with the DDT.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what they call her? 5 Feet of Fury. If you watch her, believe me, you'll see why she is 5 Feet of Fury. She's just outstanding. And then for the first time ever, it was something out of a movie or somebody that just decided to make this happen, a House of Horrors match. And, of course, the competitors being Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, Bray Wyatt defeated Randy Orton because Jinder Mahal came in the ring and interfered in the match.
Uh-huh.
And basically helped Bray Wyatt win. Jinder Mahal has actually been getting a big push lately in WWE.
And it's great to see stars of Hindu descent like Jinder Mahal get that push. And WWE has been really making it a point to bring in more wrestlers from the international circuit. Just recently, they had a series of tryouts over in India. And there was one guy who was required to do, I think it was 40 rolls in a row around the ring with Albert, who was one of the former WWE superstars watching. Albert is now a trainer.
Which is really good. You know, he really he's really good working with these wrestlers and giving the skills and all the things that they need to know when it comes to being inside the ring. Lance Storm is also a great teacher, too. He has his own academy as well.
And Lance Storm had a wonderful career, not just with WWE, but with ECW, with WCW. He was a really underrated heel back in the day. And also, WWE is really starting to take more control of the British wrestling circuit because now they have a UK championship.
Which is really good. I like the fact that they're expanding, and they even brought on from New Japan Shinsuke Nakamura, who's really, his entrance alone is just is mesmerizing when he comes in the ring, and he gets the fans pumped up and excited. And they call him the King of Strong Style. If you watch his kicks, they really kick you right in your head and make you dizzy beyond belief.
As great as we're seeing this crop of international talent making its way into the States thanks to WWE.
And Asuka, too, the women.
Yup, and of course the women's circuit as well. what does this mean for the other promotions? For example, TNA or the Ring of Honor or Combat Zone or any of the small-time promotions?
They're still going to end up being small time. WWE has set themselves up to be the dominant promotion amongst all the other companies. The only competitor maybe that I can see doing anything TNA, but I'll be honest, TNA has done little, if anything, to try and dissuade people or persuade people to watch their brand over WWE's brand. People are still going to watch WWE. Now, the last two matches I'm going to discuss, Seth Rollins defeats Samoa Joe, who finally is on the roster, Samoa Joe, who was a staple at TNA.
Yeah, he basically was basically getting a lot of time, which could have been well spent in the big time in NXT. I mean, he had, how long was it? A good 6 to 8 months, maybe even a year.
Almost a year, basically,
with
in
NXT?
TNA. NXT, yeah. And then, and this was a guy who was a major staple at TNA. He even had that
I think he was
Mafia
world
gimmick.
champion for TNA, wasn't he?
Yes, he was with the main event Mafia, that whole gig. Now he's here at WWE. He's a big heel. He's a good wrestler. And then finally, Braun Strowman did defeat Roman Reigns with the running power slam. However, after the match, Braun Strowman just wanted to destroy Roman. So he gets a steel ring step. He throws Roman onto top of the steel ring step, knowing that he has internal injuries, and makes him bleed from the mouth. And I'm sorry if I'm describing it, folks, but it was just so horrific, so disgusting that the fans, instead of feeling sorry for Roman, what do? They say, "Thank you, Strowman."
Yeah.
Which really made me lose any respect I had for a lot of the WWE universe at that moment.
It is such a crying shame that a young man who comes from a very famous family has to be subjected to such hatred and such jealousy from these quote-unquote fans like Roman Reigns has been subjected to. I didn't see any of these fans treat The Rock or the Usos or even Alpha and Sika in that manner. Yet Roman Reigns seems to be looked at not just a heel, but someone who is undeserving of even getting a shot in the ring,
They're mad.
much less getting a push.
They're mad at him because of WrestleMania, the fact that he beat The Undertaker. But don't blame him.
I think this goes further back than when he beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania. This goes back to
Royal Rumble in Philadelphia back in 2015 when he won the main event, and Daniel Bryan wasn't even included in the match.
I think you can even go further back than that. Roman Reigns has never been in the good graces of these fans, which is really shameful because that is one talented young man with a lot of skill.
I think the fans did like him when he was with The Shield. When him and Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins came together as The Shield, the fans did love him. In fact, he used to go through the crowd and they just loved patting him. But now he doesn't do that anymore because the fans honestly probably want to kill him. That's how much they hate this guy. But you know what? At the end of the day, he's going to keep doing what he's going to do. He's going to fight his hardest. But I just feel so bad for him. And I'm thinking about his daughter, his only daughter, who's depending on him, who he's sacrificing his body for. Now, let's go into some other stuff, including the NFL draft. A few weeks ago,
yes.
the NFL draft, the annual day where the prospective college football players will be hopefully drafted by one of the 32 NFL teams. The first round began 2 weeks ago on a Thursday, and guess what happened? The Cleveland Browns selected, as everybody expected, Myles Garrett at Texas A&M. The guy who ran the 40 in 5.5, who has a 37-inch wingspan, is a nasty mauler at the line of scrimmage. So for this Cleveland Browns team that was in between 30 and 32nd in total defense the last 3 years, this is a gift.
Yeah, it is a gift. Although, don't tell that to one Warren Sapp because he basically ripped Myles Garrett to shreds, saying that he's just a lazy player who can make maybe 4 or 5 plays a game.
Yeah, watch his tape, Warren, before you open your mouth and say something like that. And I know I probably shouldn't say things like that about a Hall of Famer like Warren, but really, and this is a guy whose football I have, by the way, at home, Warren Sapp. But if you watch Myles Garrett, especially at the line of scrimmage, yes, he has some issues technically that he has to work on, but for the most part, he's probably one of the best players in this draft who's going to really give Cleveland another edge to their defensive line, along with Jaime Collins and that infusion of youth they have with Danny Shelton. They got a good team for next year's defense. Now, the Chicago Bears, they were originally 3. They traded up with the 49ers to get the 49ers' second pick.
Yep.
And with that second pick, the Bears selected Mitchell Trubisky out of North Carolina, the quarterback. Now, that brings to mind the fact that they signed Mike Glennon to a 3-year, $45 million deal in the offseason with the knowledge we all thought of him being the starting quarterback. Now, it begs the question, at training camp, is there going to be a huge competition?
Well, if you ask the guys on the Bears, they're going to tell you that it will be Mike Glennon who's going to be the starter for every game in 2017, and that Trubisky is going to be basically riding the bench, holding a clipboard, and learning under a guy like Mike Glennon. To be honest with you,
Though Mike Glennon's had 9 starts in his career.
I'm not really sure that learning from a guy who's started 9 NFL games in such a short time is really a way to go for the Bears, especially when you consider that Trubisky's gone from Tampa to the point where he is right now, and also the fact that he's been basically a journeyman for the last 5 or 6 years, which is also how long his NFL career is.
They gave up a huge amount of draft picks to get him, Chicago.
You wonder if this is going to be another Ricky Williams situation all over again, where the Saints practically sold their entire life savings just to get the second or third overall pick, which turned out to be Ricky Williams. And Ricky Williams lasted only 3 years with the Saints, and they wound up getting burned really badly.
Yeah, he was with the Dolphins for a bit.
Then played with the Ravens as well.
Then he went to the Canadian League because he had issues with marijuana, and then he went back to playing with the Steelers for just a game or two, and then that was it. That was his entire career. He was a bust. And now the 3 pick, the 49ers not only got a slew of draft picks because of this, which I got to congratulate John Lynch for this job, what he's doing so far as the new GM, but they got the guy they were going to select anyway in Solomon Thomas from Stanford. The local product doesn't have to go that far.
Yeah, doesn't really have to go that far, and I think it's the right thing that the Niners did. They were burned defensively last year. You could argue that maybe they could have made more of an effort to try and get a star either at receiver or at quarterback or maybe in the backfield.
Well, they got Pierre Garçon. They did make the deal to get Pierre Garçon. Mm-hmm. He's going to be on their team at receiver for sure.
But who's going to be the quarterback, though?
That's the problem. Honestly, you got Blaine Gabbert right now, who's probably going to be the starter. And next year, they're probably going to be looking towards Kirk Cousins. He's only signed to a franchise tag deal. And you know who the head coach for the 49ers is? Kyle Shanahan, who worked several years with Cousins while they were together in Washington.
Yeah.
He knows what Cousins is capable of. So look out next year. Kirk Cousins is going to be a 49ers quarterback. I think this is the last we're going to see him as a Redskin. But the fact they got Solomon Thomas with DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead, huge. Smart move. Jacksonville Jaguars, Leonard Fournette at LSU. Yes, he's had some injury issues. He did skip the Senior Bowl. He did skip, the last bowl game of the year for LSU. But this guy, I'll be honest, he's going to add a whole dynamic, and it's going to be a run-based heavy type of system for Doug Maroney's squad.
He's in the perfect situation right now playing in Jacksonville because he's going to be working with a really green kid at quarterback, which is Blake Bortles, a kid who's been more of a disappointment with each year that's gone by. He's going to take a lot of the pressure off of Bortles.
They're going to run heavily now. Mm-hmm. That's for sure. Even though they have T.J. Yeldon and they have Chris Ivory, he's going to be the main focal point.
And the Jaguars were in a couple of close games last year, which probably could have led to a better record. But I think if you give them a little bit of time together, they might be able to turn the corner in the next year or two.
Corey Davis going to the Tennessee Titans. This was the pick. That was the Los Angeles Rams pick.
Mm-hmm.
So really this paid off dividends right now. Getting Corey Davis, another weapon for their court for Marcus Mariota to throw to. The Jets get Jamal Adams, one of the best pure safeties in the draft.
Yeah.
He's going to be a hard hitter.
Yeah, Jamal Adams was the right move for the Jets, especially considering that now that Darrell Revis is gone, they needed major help in the secondary, and he's going to solidify at least one of those spots for them.
Then Mike Williams, probably one of the best vertical deep threat receivers in the draft class, going to the Chargers, giving Phil Rivers a player to throw to besides Travis Benjamin. The Panthers get, and I'm so happy about this, Christian McCaffrey. This guy could do everything: run, catch, return the ball, and he can throw a pass.
He just gave the Panthers a lot of credibility for next season. He's going to be working with an elite quarterback as well. So look out for the Panthers to make a lot of noise next season.
And look what the Bengals did. They got the guy who broke the record at the Combine for the 40-yard dash at 4.2. I'm talking about John Ross from Washington. This is a guy that Red Dalton, I don't think, can overthrow.
Yeah.
And you put him together with A.J. Green, look out, AFC North. Then the Chiefs make probably one of the biggest moves, trading up to the 10th spot. And they get in exchange Patrick Mahomes from Texas Tech.
Yep. I think it's a brilliant move, to be honest with you, because there have been some rumors that Alex Smith may be on his way out. I think Patrick Mahomes could be the guy to take over for Alex Smith in the near future.
Marshawn Lattimore, one of the top corners in the draft from Ohio State, definitely is good in matchup situations. Going to the Saints, they need some help in that secondary. The Texans, they get a quarterback too, and they traded up to get to the 12th pick, getting Deshaun Watson. Look at what happened last year with the quarterback situation.
Do we really have to? I mean, granted, they were able to win a playoff game last year, but it was so obvious that the Texans needed an upgraded quarterback because after the disaster that was Brock Osweiler, who wound up getting traded away after 1 year of a big fat contract that he wound up signing.
17 interceptions.
Naturally, the Texans were going to have to make a move. Don't be surprised if you see Deshaun Watson take over right away.
I think that was the whole intention of them trading up. The first 3 out of the first 12 picks were all trades by teams to get a quarterback. The majority of the top 10 were offense.
Pretty interesting when you consider that this crop of quarterbacks that went in the first round are not necessarily great, but still decent.
Yep. And that's really saying something. Then Hassan Reddick goes to Arizona. I was thinking they were going to get a quarterback. That's why Houston made this move. Because Arizona, I wouldn't be shocked. Had Houston not done this move, I wouldn't have been shocked if Deshaun Watson was going to be a Cardinals. Because they need to think about a future replacement for Carson Palmer. And then the Eagles, they got Derek Barnett of Tennessee to solidify their front. Indianapolis Colts, Malik Hooker, the free safety out of Ohio State. Then at the number 16 spot, you got the Baltimore Ravens getting Marlon Humphrey, cornerback out of Alabama. Some raw potential right there. The Redskins get Jonathan Allen out of Alabama.
Yeah, that was a huge move for them, considering that they needed somebody to protect whoever their quarterback is going to be it Kirk Cousins, rather, or somebody else.
The Tennessee Titans, the move they made, cornerback, Dory Jackson, USC. That's going to help solidify things right there. The Buccaneers, O.J. Howard. They haven't had a reliable tight end weapon in the last years. Now they get that good blocking tight end. And remember, this was the guy 2 years ago in the national title game for Alabama, won the MVP had over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's a good blocking tight end as well. Garrett Bowles, one of the greatest stories. Did you see his kid at the draft?
Yeah. Then he did that little circle of life thing like in The Lion King where he raised his little baby boy up in the air. I thought it was so cool.
It was sweet, that moment. And this was one of the best stories, too. He had a situation that he dealt with drugs and some other issues in his life. And a family took him in and gave him a second chance. And he has paid off in dividends. And now he's going to be playing for the Denver Broncos. And you see the love he has for his kid and the life that he has. I'm so happy for him and his family. The Lions, they got Jared Davis out of my
University of Florida Gators, of course.
Oh, look out, man. Him with Ziggy Ansah in that front seven, watch your butts if you're in the NFC North. Now, the Miami Dolphins are getting Charles Harris out of Missouri. Missouri has always produced good defensive ends for sure.
Yeah.
The
Good
Giants.
defensive players in general.
That's true. And what about the Giants locally?
Love the pick they made, getting that tight end from Ole Miss.
Evan Ingram. Yeah.
Yep. They've been needing a tight end for the longest time. They get one who not only has the height and the strength, but also someone who could be a really, really effective weapon coming out of that spot. Put him in there with OBJ and Sterling Shepard and also Brandon Ingram, Brandon Marshall, who I'm already hearing retirement rumors from.
I'm hoping that's not the case and all, considering he just signed a 2-year deal to be with the Giants. That would be a huge, major slap in the face to them that he's retiring all of a sudden now after doing that.
Eli Manning's going to have a lot of good weapons to work with next season. Now, if only they can get some help on the O-line and at running back. But that's a story for later because they wound up addressing it somewhat in the next 6 rounds.
The Raiders, of course, getting Gary Conley out of Ohio State. The Browns getting Jabril Peppers from Michigan. This was a guy who had a diluted sample, despite the fact this guy can do everything. He can play linebacker. He can play safety. He can do offense.
And I'm already hearing that maybe the Browns do want to feature him in the offense somehow, either as a receiver or as a running back.
A return specialist, possibly, too.
They want to make him Mr. Everything.
Because of the fact that Terrell Pryor's not there anymore, and he went to Washington. Yep. So right there, they need a do-everything player. The Atlanta Falcons, Takirus McKinley, outside linebacker, UCLA. His story is also amazing, too. His grandmother was the central focal piece of his life, who raised him and made sure that he didn't go into the life of gangs and drugs. And he made something of himself at UCLA, and now the Atlanta Falcons got themselves.
And he also made
a
spectacle of himself with that infamous profanity-laced interview that he did with Deion Sanders. Did you see that interview?
You know what? I think it was an unfortunate mistake on his part. He is young. He'll look at that video. I think he's the type of guy that will realize what he did was wrong. He'll correct it, and he'll show everybody in the field that he is worth this pick.
I think it was kind of comical, personally. The Bleacher Report thought of that interview as legendary. No one ever
gets
reacted.
Legendary status.
No one ever reacted in that way being drafted before.
The Buffalo Bills, Tre'Davious White from LSU, they needed some cornerback help, especially considering they lost Stephen Gilmore to their fellow rivals, the New England Patriots. So that maybe could answer that situation. The Cowboys, I'm going to love this name, Taco Charlton from Michigan. Are they going to have Taco Tuesdays now with the Cowboys?
Well, the Cowboys are probably hoping for Taco Sundays, as in making a whole bunch of plays on Sundays.
And then the Cleveland Browns, the third pick of the first round, and this really addressed an offensive situation because the first 2 were defensive picks. David Njoku, I think, honestly, he's going to be the best tight end coming out this year from Miami.
And as it turns out, in the later rounds, they wound up addressing, once again, their quarterback problem because they wound up taking the kid from Notre Dame.
Deshaun Kaiser. Yes, who definitely has more question marks than answers, for sure. The Pittsburgh Steelers, oh, well, I guess the Watt family has got another competitor, T.J. Watt, the linebacker out of Wisconsin. Christmas Day, the Steelers and the Texans play each other. So, Mom, lock up the China because the boys are going to be duking it out.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting.
The 49ers, Reuben Foster, this was the man who basically at the Combine had that situation with the medical staff where he didn't want to wait online. And because of that, a lot of GMs were really weary about even selecting him. But the 49ers decided to take a chance on him in the first round. So they addressed, again, another defensive position at linebacker because years ago, they used to have a legendary linebacking core. But it's been reduced because of retirement and injuries. And then the Saints, with the final pick, this is from the trade with the Patriots, where Brandon Cooks went to New Orleans. They got Ryan Ramczyk out of Wisconsin.
Yep.
Probably the best pure left tackle in the draft that I wish the Giants would have selected. But I guess
they had their chance, but they felt like they wanted to address their need at tight end first than anywhere else. But overall, I'm really happy with what the Giants did. I'm pretty pleased with what the Jets did as well.
Ardarius Stewart. I
Mhm.
love that pick.
Yeah, Ardarius Stewart as a wide receiver is going to be really, really good for them. The question is, who's going to throw to him?
I know. Is it going to be, and it's going to...
Is it going to be Christian Hackenberg? Is it going to be the kid from Baylor, which is
Bryce Petty?
Bryce Petty? Or
Or
is it going to be the guy that they
McCutcheon.
signed,
Yeah.
which is
Josh
McCown? If you ask Joe Namath, though, he wants to see Christian Hackenberg get his chance to win the starter's job.
I would love to. I don't think that's honestly going to happen. It's going to be most likely McCown who's going to win the starting job with Price being the backup. Yeah, Bryce Petty being the backup, and then you're going to have Hackenberg basically sitting on the bench or being on the practice squad,
Mm-hmm.
and then sometime during the season, because McCown is so predictable getting concussed, we're going to see Hackenberg at some point in the season. This is a bust year for the Jets. This is a bust year.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say that, Jets fans. You're going to want to avert your eyes every Sunday from any games that they play. Trust me.
Speaking of quarterbacks, the Giants made a rather interesting selection with one of their later round picks because they got the kid from California, Davis Webb,
Yep.
to be a future replacement for Eli Manning. So now the Giants quarterback trio is Manning, Webb, and the ex-Jet Geno Smith.
Oy vey.
In addition to Ryan Nassib, who
No, he's not on the team anymore.
not on the team anymore.
Yep. Yeah, because his 4-year deal ended last year, so he's not on the team. That's why they got Davis Webb. Because
Mhm.
let's be honest, Geno Smith is not your starter at all. He's your backup at best on any team. I hate to say that too. This is why Davis Webb, on the other hand, he does come in with some questions. But the fact is, he was the backup for the quarterback that's now playing for the Los Angeles Rams.
Which is Jared Goff.
Yep, he was Jared Goff's backup. He got his 1 year as a starter for the California Golden Bears. And the fact that he got selected very high, round 5, I believe, for the Giants. It's going to be interesting, or round 4, sorry.
Should Giants fans be thankful that Eli Manning has been such an Iron Man for them? He has started every single game at quarterback for them since halfway through the 2004 season.
Well, definitely for sure. But you know what? Now let's get into the playoffs, starting with the NBA, the quarterfinals. We had the Bucks Raptors. Game 5, the Bucks basically beat the Raptors 118-93. Actually, the Raptors beat the Bucks 118-93. Career high playoff for Powell, 25 points. And then DeMar DeRozan, Corey Joseph and company going on 9-0 run in Game 6, beating the Bucks 92-89 to solidify the series. And now they went into the Eastern Conference semifinals against the Cleveland Cavaliers,
Who basically swept the Pacers out of their sights. Although each game was very, very well contested. You could argue that maybe the Pacers could have completed a 4-game sweep, but the Cavaliers, way too talented, way too much skill on the front line. Way too good defensively as well.
Then the semifinals, Game 1, beer bottle gate with LeBron James. Even though he had 35 points and almost sipped a beer on the bench, they won 116, 105, 35 points from James. Then James has a 39-point performance, basically leaping Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the second most on the all-time playoff scoring list. The Cavs win Game 2, 125-103. LeBron James, a 35-point performance with Kevin Love 16 points and 13 rebounds in Game 3 in Toronto. Basically, this is the first game without Kyle Lowry, unfortunately, because he injured himself in Game 2. Yeah, they beat the Raptors 115-194. And then the Cavs go on an 11-2 run in Game 4, including Kyrie Irving having a huge 3 points and some free throws. They win 109-102. LeBron James, 35 points. Kyrie Irving, 27.
Which means 2 years in a row the Cavaliers have beaten the Raptors in a playoff series. And also, LeBron has the record for the most second-round sweeps of a series.
And the second straight year they win 8 consecutive postseason games. That hasn't been done since the 49 and 50 Minneapolis Lakers.
You say what you will about LeBron, but let me tell you, Michael Jordan won 6 titles. I remember him maybe sweeping a second-round series once, which was the Cleveland series in 1993. Now, as far as the other series in the Eastern Conference,
well, the quarterfinals, you had the Bulls and the
well,
Celtics.
I'll wrap it up really quickly. The Celtics wound up getting to the next level by beating the Bulls, overcoming a 2-0 deficit to win that series in 6 games, and then the Wizards wound up overcoming a really tough Hawks squad, winning that series in 6 games. So now the Celtics and Wizards are locked in a really, really bitter playoff battle that was made possible by a situation that involved Oubre and also Kelly Olynyk, who's already gotten the tag of being a dirty player.
Well, you look at the first game, the 19 3-pointers that the Celtics made in the first game of the semifinals. They won 123, 111 at home. Game 2, basically, this is where the Celtics took care of business, and they still, with Thomas scoring 53 points, they won 129, 119. Then comes Game 3. Finally, the Wizards break out of their funk. Even though there was a lot of technical fouls, they win 116, 189.
And then came Game 4, when the Wizards scored 26 points in a row in the third quarter, and that turned out to be the turning point. A 26-0 run, which turned into a 121-102 victory. So now we've got a really good series, and the Cavaliers are going to be watching really closely at that series. And just to give you an idea, LeBron James has dominated the Washington Wizards in past playoff series in the past. So it's not going to matter to him either way who he's going to face in the conference finals, but that's some food for thought for you.
I think Boston's going to be a lot tougher
than
Washington.
Boston's going to give them a hell of a lot more trouble because they've got more explosiveness in their backcourt, plus they've got really, really physical guys on the front line.
And they're not the type of team that's going to give up those easy 3-pointers that both the Pacers and the Raptors gave up.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the reason why the Raptors lost, they couldn't shoot. They couldn't buy a 3-pointer to save their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's look in the Western Conference.
Western Conference, we could let you know.
The Warriors swept the Blazers.
Yeah, all Warriors all the time in the Western Conference. Swept the Blazers. They're on the verge of sweeping the Jazz. They're going to be playing each other in Game 4 tonight.
And
as far as the other series,
Clippers in 7 games.
Yep, Jazz beat the Clippers in 7 games. As far as the other series, it's literally a Texas two-step because after the Rockets spanked Oklahoma City and the Spurs held off a really tough Memphis squad, you've got a Spurs versus Rockets series in which each game has been decided rather handily.
I know, especially you look at Game 1. Trevor Ariza had 23 points. James Harden 20 points. They won 126-99, and they shot 22 for 50 from beyond the arc. Then comes Games 2 and 3, where the Houston Rockets were limited at the 3-point range, and that's where Kawhi Leonard had a 34-point performance. Parker, unfortunately, had the major leg injury, which knocked him out of the playoffs for basically the rest of the playoffs for the foreseeable future for the Spurs. Game 3 comes. LaMarcus Aldridge finally gets into the party. Gets 26 points along Kawhi Leonard. They win 103-92. But then came Game 4 yesterday. Harden had 28 points along with Eric Gordon's 22-point performance. They were shooting 3-pointers left and right. Unbelievable, 19 of 43. They won the game 125 to 104. The series is tied at 2 games apiece. Tonight, the Warriors go for the sweep against the Utah Jazz.
And I think the Warriors are going to complete a 4-game sweep of the Jazz. Way too much talent. Not only that, but ever since the Jazz star player Rudy Gobert wound up getting hurt, they just have not been the same team.
Now let's go to the NHL playoffs. In the Eastern Conference semifinals, Game 1, you had the Penguins in the Capitals. Sidney Crosby's 2 goals in, 52 seconds. Penguins win 3-2. Game 2 comes, and again, Sidney Crosby sets up 2 goals. Phil Kessel and Jake Wenzel, the rookie, Each had 2 goals apiece. They beat the Washington Capitals 6-2. Then comes Game 3 in overtime. Kevin Shattenkirk, who is going to be a free agent, gets the game winner. 3 minutes, 13 seconds into overtime. The Capitals beat the Penguins 3-2. Then Game 4 comes. Marc-Andre Fleury has 36 stops on goal. Jake Guentzel took advantage of a nice, a fortunate bounce for his playoff-leading 8th goal. The Penguins beat the Capitals 3-2. Then came Game 5 in Washington this past Saturday night. Nicholas Backstrom gets the tying goal. Evgeny Kuznetsov and Alex Ovechkin, 27 seconds apart, help the Capitals defeat the Penguins 4-2. They were 20 minutes away from elimination.
Yeah.
And now they go back tonight. It's going to be Game 6 in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh still has a chance to close it out. I think Washington wins and forces Game 7.
Well, in order to save their season, they're going to have to.
Now to our local New York Rangers. Game 1 comes, and basically Erik Karlsson beats Henrik Lundqvist with the impossible angle shot with about 4:11 left. The Rangers lose Game 1, 2-1. Even though Ryan McDonagh did get the first goal of the game, didn't matter. At the end of the day, Erik Karlsson, one of the best two-way players in the league, gets that game-winning goal. Then came Game 2. The Rangers are up 5-3 with less than 3 minutes to go, and John Gabriel Pageau gets the 2 goals in the final 3:19 to tie up the game, and then gets the game-winning goal 2 minutes 54 seconds into overtime. Unfortunately, past Lundqvist, Rangers lose 6-5.
And then came Games 3 and 4, where Lundqvist did a complete about-face, and the Rangers wound up winning by identical 4-1 scores.
If you look at Game 3, Zuccarello got them going with the first goal of the game, especially, when Mika Zibanejad was able to bring the puck up the right side and then gave it to Zuccarello, who was able to go in front past Craig Anderson. So, yeah, they won 4-1. And then Game 4 came along, and Kyle Turris, even though he did score for Ottawa, but it was Kreider and Holden. Nick Holden, both of them getting huge goals. And how about Rick Nash, too, on that defensive mishap that took place at center ice. And he's able to get the nice feed. They win 4-1. Then came Game 5 this past Saturday. The Rangers get the first goals, including the one over the middle of the crossbar that gave them their second goal just in the first period. Then, unfortunately, Ottawa gets a goal at the end of the first period, so it's 2-1 going into the second, and that's where the turning point took place. 2 goals within minutes of each other by Ottawa. They're up 3-2 basically, and then of course Ryan McDonagh gets the game tying goal at the time, a nice little sweep around, making it 3-3. Then comes the third period. Yet Jimmy Vesey gets his first goal.
Yeah, on a play that turned into a goal on review. Originally, the Senators' goalie, Mr. Anderson, wound up having it in his glove, but the replay showed that the glove and the puck inside the glove were inside the net, so that became a good goal.
It was his first goal of the playoffs. They were up 4-3 with 7 minutes to go. Then all of a sudden, as the situations happened in Games 1 and 2, where the Ottawa Senators have had a lead, what does Ottawa do? Or Guy Boucher? He takes out Craig Anderson for the extra attacker. And who was the extra attacker? None other than ex-Ranger Derek Brassard. In that insane scrum, gets the game-tying goal. And then, of course, in overtime, Kyle Turris from the left side of the rink gets his own rebound past the 5-hole of Lundqvist. They win 5-4.
Do you know that the Senators have had a lead for a total of barely 5 minutes in this series?
Which is insane. And how about the fact that the Rangers have scored first in every single game?
Well, this shows two games. This shows, it literally does show two different types of games in this series. One, overall, the Rangers have been the better team. Two, the Rangers' execution in the third periods of these games has been abysmal. Giving up the go-ahead goal in Game 1, then giving up the game-tying goals in Games 2 and 5. You could argue the Rangers should have won this series.
They gave
hands
up
down.
13 goals in Ottawa and only 2 goals in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And they're playing tomorrow night in New York. This is the situation. They have to win tomorrow night in order to force Game 7 back in,
I don't
in the
think
Canadian
I don't
capital.
think it could be any more clear than that. They have to hold serve at the Garden tomorrow night, because if not, then it's going to be another offseason of a whole bunch of unanswered questions.
Especially hearing situations about Kevin Shattenkirk.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm the Rangers, I would go after him in free agency if they got a shot at getting him. Now, to the Western Conference, starting with the Nashville Predators and the St. Louis Blues, the Predators, for the first time ever in their entire history, have made it beyond the semifinals and are in the Western Conference Finals. 18 years as a franchise in Music City. They win Game 1 4-3 with the Fiddler score with 5:05 left. They lose Game 2 to the St. Louis Blues on the Vladimir Tarasenko go-ahead goal, 3-2. Then Game 3 comes in Nashville. Cody McLeod gets the game winner in the second period, 3-1. Then Game 4 in Nashville, Ryan Ellis and James Neal and company win it 2-1. Game 5, this is where St. Louis gets, by this guy Dmitry Yaskin gets the game winner in his first ever playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
Blues win 2-1 to force Game 6 back in Music City. And then Ryan Johansson, early in the 5 minutes into the third period, gets what is the game-winning goal. They end up winning 3-1, ending.
How do you think that PK Subban trade that the Predators made last summer is looking right now?
It's looking great. With him and Roman Josi, who, by the way, Roman Josi has 9 goals, a franchise record. That is a great combination right there, because PK is not your typical. He's not a good goal-scoring defense player. He's a one-way defensive player, but he's good at setting up goals, and he's good at attacking along the boards.
Mm-hmm.
As for the rest of the team with Johansson, Forsberg, and Arvidsson, and then Pekka Rinne, one of the top 5 goaltenders in save percentage and goals against average, they got a young, hungry team that's had to deal with multitudes of injuries this year. But for St. Louis, I feel so bad considering they let their coach Ken Hitchcock go in February. They went 12-1-1 in that stretch, including winning in 5 games against the Minnesota Wild for Mike Yeo. I think they have a good team still for the future. St. Louis will always be in the conversation. Now, speaking of a young, hungry team, how about this team, the Edmonton Oilers?
Yeah.
First time in 10 years they've been to the playoffs. They're going against another hungry team, the Anaheim Ducks. First game, of course, in 45 minutes, it's all Edmonton. They win with Adam Larson scoring the second of his third period goals. 4:40 to play. Edmonton wins 5-3 in the Honda Center. Game 2 comes, and basically Anaheim dominated in the first final 2.5 periods. But at the end of the day, it was Patrick Maroon who got the power play goal for the Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers win 2-1. Game 3 comes in Edmonton, and this time Anaheim does its job. Jakob Silfverberg scoring twice, and Getzlaf getting a goal and assist. They win 6-3. And then Game 4, one of the greatest comebacks. Edmonton's up 3-0 with just less than 4 minutes to go. And what happens? Anaheim engineers one of the most improbable situations. They get the 3 goals, including the game time by Rickard Rakell, and then the game winner in overtime by Ryan Getzlaf. And actually, the game winner by Jakob Silfverberg in 45 seconds into overtime.
And as it turns out, the Ducks wound up continuing that momentum into Game 5 because they wound up winning 4-3 in double overtime.
That was a double overtime game. Sorry, that was the Friday night. The other one was
and then came last night when the Oilers got 5 goals in the first period and never looked back. So now there's going to be
Leon Draisaitl got the hat trick.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the amount of hats that piled onto the Rogers place in its first year? They win 7-1. It's tied at 3 games apiece.
And this begs the question, since there's going to be a 7th game, who do you think is going to be the best matchup for the Predators, Anaheim or Edmonton?
I think both are going to be tough in different ways. Edmonton, with a lot of the infusion of youth, Connor McDavid, leading the team, and Leon Draisaitl, and then Milan Lucic, brings that great veteran presence on the team, and Cam Talbot, who has had several games in which he's shut out teams. Anaheim is no slouch either. When you got guys like Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf have been together since the last Stanley Cup appearance in 2007, and this guy Jakob Silverberg who can score points, and Ricky Raquel who's had a goal in 4 straight games. Doesn't matter who you play against, but if I'm the Paris, I would rather play Anaheim. They are more vulnerable at goaltender than Edmonton is. Especially yesterday. Look at what happened to Gibson. Gave up, 3 goals, and they let him go.
Speaking of goalies, just so you know, the guy that's between the pipes for the Oilers, Cam Talbot, is an ex-Ranger. Wouldn't that be something if you saw a Rangers versus Oilers Stanley Cup final, where you would see the master against his former pupil?
Yeah, but first the Rangers got to win tomorrow night in order for that to happen.
Yeah.
And then they have to win on Thursday in Ottawa. So if the Rangers want to have any chance getting into a cup and winning for the first time since '94, they must win tomorrow night. Otherwise, it's over. And as for tonight's game, I'm still going to go with Washington to force Game 7 for Wednesday.
Let's quickly go into baseball in the last 3.5 minutes. The Yankees, let's face facts. It's May. Granted, they're playing some good baseball right now, but it's not masking any of their issues, which is CC Sabathia looking very, very up and down. And Gary Sanchez just made his way back from the disabled list. He's going to need some time to get himself acclimated once again. But on the bright side, they seem to be coming up with one clutch play after another, whether it's at the plate or on the defensive field. 2, I think it's safe to say Aaron Judge is a boss. I mean, and it's not just the home runs either. I mean, he's able to protect the plate well. He's reaching out for pitches and taking them to the opposite field. He's solid defensively. I think the Yankees might have themselves the next great pinstriped superstar on their horizon.
You know what week this is for the Yankees? Derek Jeter.
That's right. Because this coming Sunday night, Derek Jeter is officially going to have a night in his honor at the stadium before the Houston game. And it's going to be on national television. And he's going to get his number retired and get his bust in Monument Park, I should say. He's going to get a plaque in Monument Park, is what I should be saying.
And I'm very happy for him. You know, it's really, and there were actually rumors recently that him and the former Governor Jeb Bush have recently formed a contingent to buy the Miami Marlins for over $1 billion, and he dispelled those rumors, saying that's not really the case.
And there were also rumors that the other guy that was in position to try and buy the Marlins was Alex Rodriguez, and that Alex decided to back out at the last minute.
I don't blame him. That's not a team to buy. This is, that's a curse right there for you.
Yeah.
For your pocket. You do not want to end up, bleeding money and hemorrhaging lots of money.
I will say this, though. You can't go wrong with an owner like Derek. As for the Mets, they took 2 out of 3 over the weekend against Miami, but the injury bug continues to plague them. Now,
And
Noah
suspension.
Syndergaard is going to be gone for the next 2 or 3 months. Matt Harvey wound up getting suspended. If you ask him, he thinks there's some miscommunication because he made it clear that he told the club he was not going to make it to the stadium on Saturday because he had a migraine headache. So exactly who do we believe right now?
I'll be honest. I don't believe him for a second. Even if you have a migraine, you have a situation like that, you're not scheduled pitch, but you're supposed to be there at the stadium, and be there with your team.
And this isn't the first time those two sides have been at odds either.
I know this is really going to be contentious a little bit. I wouldn't be shocked at some point if some team is crazy enough to maybe grab him. Who knows?
Well, that's officially going to do it for us, folks. For everyone here, I'm Jaime.
And I'm Eric.
Good night, everyone.
Peace.